Hey everyone, welcome back to Behind the Emerald Veil podcast with Mandy and Allison from Soulstar Energy Collective. We're healers, intuitives, and teachers, and we just like to talk about this spiritual stuff and make it relatable and have fun while we do it. So thank you for being here.
Yay!
What are we going to talk about today?
What are we going to talk about today? So we are going to talk about near-death experiences. And this kind of like came up because I went on a bender of watching near-death experience videos on YouTube. So even though I don't listen to podcasts, like we mentioned before, I do watch videos on YouTube. So that's like my equivalent.
Yeah.
Right? Well, yeah. And the one I've been listening to is actually a podcast. I realized it is a podcast, but he just does the videos. So I just watch that.
I was going to say, because our podcast is now on YouTube.
Yeah. Right? And so ours is a video. So, which is kind of nice though, because it does kind of capture, because there's some people that just don't, like, I need something to visually see, or else I start to, like, my mind wanders. So having it on video, it's like, for me, keeps my attention span longer. So yeah, I've been deep diving into these near-death experiences, and it's just like, obviously it's fascinating, right? Somebody that can experience the other side and come back to share about it, that's pretty damn cool. But just watching these and hearing these different experiences, is just like, there was so many aha moments that I kind of like stepped back and I was like, I never thought of it that way. So I spammed you with a whole bunch of them to be like, listen to these.
I know. And I was like, when? I have no time.
Like when you listen to podcasts.
I did. Yeah, so I listened when I was getting my makeup on, when I took the dogs for a walk, when I was in the car, when I was doing anything that wasn't like, you know, where I had to focus. So I think you sent me like 3, and then I came across one where I sent you. So we'll post them, we'll link them all in the show notes too, because obviously we'll be referencing these.
What was the one you sent me?
It was, maybe you didn't listen
so many. I did.
It was the one where you didn't really super resonate with.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting one. Yes. Because I had actually seen that 8 months ago.
Yeah.
But not the interview that you had shared with me.
Yeah. So his story, I've recognized his story as well.
Okay.
And then, but the stuff he was sharing afterwards, I was very intrigued with. So we'll get into that. We'll get into that. But where do you want to start with this?
Okay. So what is a near-death experience?
Oh, there you go.
An NDE, as they call it. So a near-death experience is when somebody has, you know, potentially died, or even, I would say, being in a coma type of thing. So, you know, there's some that they say like, oh, like my heart stopped, I was technically dead for 10 minutes or whatever it is. And then there's some that say like they were in a coma, like just on the edge of going, so maybe not technically dead, but life support keeping them alive or whatever it is, but have this experience on the other side where their soul has left their body and gone off and had some fun.
I find that super fascinating. It's kind of like, I don't know, I find that, so let me just finish all my thoughts. I find that
turning into an Allison.
I know. So first of all, I find that super fascinating. And then my brain was like, it's kind of like sleeping in a sense where your consciousness just, you know, leaves your body and goes and has an adventure, but you're more consciously aware. And you remember everything when you come back into your body. So one of the questions that was asked, so this lady was sharing her story, and then the podcaster was saying, hey, I know these are the questions that are going to come in, so I'm just going to ask you. And one of them was like, how do you know that this wasn't a dream? And she said, well, when you dream, typically you don't remember, you know, too much. You might have those odd dreams where you, like, it feels real. And she's like, and that's what it felt like. But usually you'll kind of, you know, it'll kind of disappear out of your memory throughout time. And she's like, and I remember everything 25 years later. like
And
to
the
a T.
details. Yeah.
The
So
feelings, the details, the messages, the lessons, like all of that.
All the things. And it's so true, because dreams, the ones, even the ones that we do remember, there is like, it's like a clouded memory, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, even if you look back now, it's like it's gotten cloudier and cloudier because it's not as potent, but maybe you remember just the feeling that this overall scenario dream gave you. But like, you're right, these ones, it's like, they're not just remembering the feeling, like they're remembering every part of it. And another part of that is almost every single one, well, I think every single one I've watched, has been able to see what's happening in real time and come back and say this to their loved ones or the doctors or everything. Like they're like, how did you know this? And they were literally watching it.
Yeah.
So, which is crazy.
Yeah. I find that so cool.
Yeah. Like people could say, I love being is it a pessimist? No, I'm not a pessimist. I don't know what it is. I always like to like question things. Like, so I'll sit there and be like, okay, but how could this be? I like to look at the other side. And so, I guess somebody could say, oh, well, they were, their consciousness or their subconscious was picking up on what was happening and what was being said. Yeah, for sure. That's an option. But the difference is that they will even say, you were standing here, you were standing there. So the subconscious can't pick up on that. They can pick up on the words, but it's not going to pick up on where everybody was and what happened here. Or even, no, there was even one where she was saying she heard, or she was watching a conversation outside of the hospital room with the doctor and her husband or something, and knew everything. And so they were like, that's why when the doctor's like, how did you know that? Because he knew he didn't say it in there. It was like, I was witnessing it. So crazy.
And there's some doctors that know that that can happen. So that's so funny, because he probably knew that, she's not conscious, but she can hear what we're saying. So he stepped out of the room to share the news, and then she still heard him. That's so
oh my right? That's like, so oh my God.
Does it work like that?
Watching?
Energy doesn't have walls, Doc.
Oh my God. It's so funny. Yeah. Well, it's like, and you hear of people, like I've heard of like past life regression or hypnotherapy, when people talk about, when, we read that book, Journey of Souls. Journey of Souls plug. I just, every time we mention that one, I'm like, we should count how many times we mention it. But with that book, it was all of these people being hypnotized so that we could understand what happens afterwards when we pass
in the afterlife.
And in the afterlife. And they all talk about how when they pass, they leave their body and they're watching their loved ones crying or whatever it is. They can see all of the things. And so it makes sense, right? Like that these people that are there and they can see it. Like this has been something that has been, shared many, many times. And so I'm like, God, that's so crazy.
And I also like when you watch these near-death experiences or listen to their stories and their experiences while they were in the afterlife. It's also another way for us to learn about what it's like, when we pass away, because we learn so much from, hypnosis. So those clinical trials and learning from those psychologists who would document those therapy sessions and then share their findings and the patterns and all the things. But also this is just another way. So there's basically 3 ways that we learn what's happening on the other side, or how it works on the other side. So the hypnosis, the book, the Journey of Souls, and all the other books that are like that, but also these near-death experiences and these wonderful, beautiful souls who are brave enough to share their experiences. And then also, you get from people who channel beings from the other side, or angels, if you believe in that, or from psychics and mediums that receive information. So there's like 3 ways that we're receiving what it's like on the other side, to try to, pierce, I guess, the veil that keeps our human amnesia intact. So it's just another way for us to learn. So that's why I find it so fascinating to listen to these stories.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I'm like, it just kind of like blows my mind. And like, even just, it's like, you can hear it in their voice. How beautiful it is and how much love that they feel on the other side. And it's like every single person describes like how they just was like, oh my God, I'm home. And how there's so many that are like, yeah, I'm not going back.
Right. And then even just being so when they have this near death experience and then they come back into their body because they learn that they're not done yet, or they have the choice to come back in to finish, you know, what they came here to do, or whatever reason it is that they decide to come back into their body. Typically, not only are they dealing with the trauma of whatever accident or experience that put them in that position, but now they also have to deal with that. So they just experienced infinite love and the feeling of being home. So now they come back into Earth School and you get homesick, and there's a bit of PTSD from even experiencing that, and there's a depression, I would imagine, that would set in after after experiencing that and seeing what it's like on the other side, and having that full view without any human amnesia as to like the full picture of what your life is meant to be and what you're meant to do here, what your purpose is, what your mission is. And then you know, having to deal with the heaviness of this place and all the human things like paying your fucking bills, and
you're like, who cares? Like,
yeah.
I literally see the other side, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I couldn't imagine that mind fuck that would be, right? Like, that would be so layered. And then on top of it, even questioning your own sanity,
Yeah.
to be like, was that real? Was that not real? Because a lot of these people kept it, or like there's a lot of people that keep it quiet,
Yeah.
until years later, and then start telling their story, or hear of somebody else that tells their story and they're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that happened to me. Like, that was real. Because, like, you know, we know with spirituality, and even with ourselves, that we've had, you know, coming out of that closet, that not everybody's going to be receptive to it, and there can be a lot of judgment towards it. And so, you know, that definitely would be something that if you weren't exposed to spirituality beforehand, that would be very confusing. I would assume. If you had nobody in your circle, you weren't exposed, that'd be so confusing.
It would be. It would be. And but there's a place that a few of them mentioned, and I was just trying to Google it quickly, but I don't think I'm going to get it. So we'll try and figure it out and put it in the show notes. So if you know somebody who had a near-death experience, or you yourself had a near-death experience and you don't really have anybody to talk to about it, there is a place, like a forum, a place, a group that you can connect with who've all gone through this. And so there was one lady who shared her story, which was not like the nicest story. Like, her experience in the afterlife was more like she was manifesting a place like hell instead of a place like heaven. So she didn't want to share her story when she finally got connected with this group of people, because everybody's stories were so lovey and like amazing and this beautiful love, and they didn't want to come back. And she was scared when she was in that space, because she was manifesting terrible things. And we'll talk about that further in a second, but just so you know, there is a place out there, so you can Google it. We'll try to find it, put it in the show notes, so that there is a support group and you can share your story and you can be validated. And it sounds like a beautiful space to be for people who've experienced this type of trauma and this near-death piece.
Yeah, I could only imagine the validation of that. Like, you know, when you were on your spiritual journey and, you know, having these experiences and nobody was around that you really could talk to about it. It's like, it makes a big difference once you can connect to somebody. And even just our students in class, when, you know, they've been on their own spiritual journey, and then all of a sudden we're in class and we're talking, and then they're like, wait, that's what that is? Or, you know, it's just those light bulb moments. So yeah, so beautiful. So that near-death experience, that story about manifesting hell, that was really, because at first when I was like listening to it, and I was like, wait a minute, what's happening here? Like, she's literally talking about or describing what I would assume hell was, and I don't believe in hell. And so I was like sitting there going like, what is this gibberish? Yeah, it was crazy, because so she's telling the story about like just these crazy loops that she was in, and she just seemed to she couldn't get out of it, and it was scary, and it was a lot. And then basically by the end, she realized, like, did she finally escape?
I think what happened was, yeah, I think what happened was she finally got frustrated enough where she was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. This is ridiculous. And it reminds me of a psychic attack that I had when I was like, you know, it was a nightmare. And I, at some point in my dream state, I had to say enough is enough and be like, no, like, rah, and get angry. And that's when my dream ended. But it was similar to her because that's what I was equating it to, or thinking of when she was telling that part of the story. Is she finally got to a point where she was just like, no, and then she started singing Away in the Manger, because she started singing a song that had to do with God and love, and then the vibration of that song, other beings like souls that were there with her were starting to sing, and then that's when she felt that immense beautiful love energy come to save her,
and she snapped out of it.
Yeah.
And so so I was so confused because I was sitting there going like, what?
Yeah.
I do not believe in hell. I do not believe in this damnation of I'm going to sit here, because it was like what she was literally describing, I would assume what hell would be like, and it's just like on repeat, and you can't get out of it, and this is all you're gonna live in, this like I don't know, existence that is just kind of like Groundhog Day, doing the same crazy shit after another. And so when she came back, or when she saw the heavens or whatever, it was like the clarity came that she believed in hell. And this was a big thing for her. So she grew up very, very religious, and her family was very religious. And there was this huge aspect of, if you do wrong, you will be damned and in hell.
And to add to that is that I guess the Catholic religion also tells you, or programs into you, that there's a purgatory. So a lot of people, instead of going straight to heaven, they'll go to purgatory first, where they will go and confess their sins and be released and healed from their sins. And a sin could be as simple as cursing at somebody on the street, or having sex with somebody that out of wedlock, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like a sin could be so little, so simple. And so basically everybody's going to go to purgatory first. And that's what she believed to her core, is that she would go to purgatory and then she would go to heaven after she did some healing and some confessing or kissing the feet of some saint. I don't know. So that's where she thought she was in purgatory. And and then she realized that it was terrible. It was a terrible place to be. But
and she even said, like, and she was so confused because in her life she was like, I worked so hard to pray enough, because they just instilled it, like, you need to pray enough, you need to do this enough, you need to repent, like, you need to do it enough. And so she was like, when she was in that experience, she was like, I obviously didn't do it enough. I wasn't doing this enough. Like, it was just this. And then, the realization to be like, holy crap, that's what she was told afterwards, or I think when she was like connected to heaven or whatever, that she manifested it, because what she believed in, she created. And, which is just crazy. And so then, like, this, I think this podcast episode says, like, what was the title? Was it like,
it's called Good Catholic Goes to Hell, says religion is the blame. I don't know what her name is.
The religion is to blame. Yeah. Because saying that because of this, religion, that there's this darker side where it's like, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. Which is just like absurd.
Yeah, well, and that's just the way it's been. And she's 70 now. So she grew up in like the, I don't know, like the 60s, 70s, the 50s. Like she was so a very programmable, very brainwashy, but that's just, everybody went to church, and it's, that's just what you did. And if you didn't go to church, then you were the weird one. And nowadays, like in this day and age, not everybody goes to church. We all kind of like, I don't know many people that go to church at all, actually. But even when I was little, you went to church. Like I went to church when I was little, not very often, but we tried, my parents tried to get us to church. We did Sunday school. And then at a certain age, it kind of all just fell off to the back burner because we had our sports and stuff going on Sunday mornings. So I don't know. I found her story really, really interesting. It's obviously not our story, so we're going to link her story so you guys can watch it. But she definitely felt very strongly afterwards that after she had time to just sort of like, I guess, sit with what happened, what she received. And didn't her mom say to her, like, what did you do to go to hell? Like, what aren't you telling us? Like, why did you end up in hell?
Because like, what did you do?
Yeah.
What did you do that was so bad that you were going to hell? Because the mom's belief was 100% like, there's no way you would have been there unless you did something horrible.
Yeah.
You know, and which was just like, can you imagine like all of a sudden having this crazy experience, having to come to this idea that what you've believed in your whole life was not true, and unpacking that, and then you're being blamed for being an awful person.
Yeah, but now she's at the place where she can just hold compassion for her mom for where she's at, because that's her mom's belief, and it doesn't need to be her belief. So she's been able to do a lot of healing around that. But she said she has PTSD about that experience for sure. She had to go to counseling, she had to unpack, and then she found that group we were talking about because she didn't want to share her story, but it's almost more important for her to share her story, because there's probably so many people that have had experience like that, where they were in some sort of unconscious state, whether they were in a coma or whether they had passed away for a few minutes or whatever, where they maybe experienced that and not understanding why, and then coming back to this life being fearful for, you know what I mean? Like if I don't
want to go back there.
Yeah. If that happened to me and and then I came back in and I was like, oh my God, I never want to die. Like I would be scared, scared to die, because I wouldn't want to experience that again. So even her sharing her story, I feel is more important. Passing that word around is that you can manifest what it is that you experience when you pass over. Because if you truly believe in that you're going to go to purgatory, then that's what you're going to receive. That's what you're going to end up in. But if you truly believe that you're going to be met by Jesus or by Buddha or by a bunch of goddesses or by, you're going to, all your loved ones, that's what you're going to manifest. That's what you're going to experience. So
yeah. And I think it's important to say, like I don't believe, from everything that we've heard and what we received, that there is a thing, purgatory, hell, whatever it is. There's not this like, ooh, hey, you go here, because the other side is pure love. And that is unfortunately where religion has manipulated people is into believing this idea. So when you said, you were just saying like, if that's something you believe, then that's where you'll go. But I don't believe that you'll stay.
No. Oh yeah, no.
You're just going to create, it's just creating, like we talk about, your thoughts create your reality. So you would be creating this reality, but it's not like there's an actual place you're going to go and hang out there. It is just the creation of your own manifestation, your reality. And I also don't think that it's something that you can't. So let's just say you are like, oh my God, no, I'm 100. Somebody's like 100% like, I'm going to hell or whatever it is. And you manifest it. I also don't think that means you're never going to get out of it. I think it's just a learning part for your soul, like this lady, to finally be like, actually, no, I'm not doing this. And then it was like, and there you go. Thank you. Yeah. Right. I'm like, and so even though the experience felt forever, like she felt it was forever, in reality it wasn't.
Wasn't it like 15 minutes or something?
Yeah. And she felt like years went by or whatever. And and that's just the part of no time and space that happens. But yeah, it was very fascinating. And I've watched a few different NDEs that talk about how one of them was like, religion is lying to you or something like that, which, obviously that's what we've realized, like that there's there's an aspect of truth within religion, and then there's an aspect
Mhm.
of manipulation. And so, you know, this other lady, and I'm trying to remember her story, but she was also saying, like, she went to the other side. She went through all the experiences of nothing to do with like damnation or hell or anything like that, but she was like connected to source, or she was like with source, and she was like, okay, I gotta ask. She starts asking the questions that everybody wants to know, and it was just so like fascinating. Do you remember what she was saying?
Her name's Nancy.
Yeah.
And she asked, the one that I can remember the clearest is, what is the one true religion? And then I can't remember what the answer was.
Oh my God. I was like, oh, what is it?
But there is, like, I'm pretty sure it was like, there is not a one true religion. It is, you know, part of it was like Christianity is what she was saying. She grew up Catholic too, but Christianity, she was saying, was there's aspects of like the Egyptians, there's like the Aboriginals, like the like Jesus, like there's aspects of all these different things tied into that one religion. And so it's not one true religion, it's whatever you believe in. It's a source.
Well, I think there is no one. No religion is true.
No
religion is one. All it is I think, like, if you strip it all away, all it is that we are energy, we are pure love, and when we pass over, we are in this frequency of love, which, you know, these religions try to talk about, being like, do unto your neighbor as, you know, you do unto whatever it is, you know, you hear those things, like there's that talk about being that there's love and all those things, but at the end of the day, you strip it all away, it's literally comes back to the frequency of love.
Yeah. She also, as you're talking there, I remember the other question she asked was like, who is God? And what she received was, God is basically an energy, and is very curious, and is the energy that created our universe. And basically that's it. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah. It's just an energy, like we are all energy.
We're all fractals of that energy. So we all have God within us.
Yeah.
Like, and you don't have to call it God. You can call it source, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't, you could call it, you know, I don't know, like whatever you want.
The light. The light bulb.
You can call it Ben if you want. But
or Angela, who knows?
Right? Come on, Linda.
Come on, Linda. Oh my God. You know, it was funny though, because I brought this concept to you because this is how my fucking brain works. So source is like, you know, I'm curious. I'm just a curious being. And I'm just like, you know, creating fractals on myself to experience all these things. And I've created all of this. And I was like, who's to say there's not another source?
Yeah.
Who's to say, like,
that created that source?
That created, well, and even like that there's a whole bunch of these sources these that are all like, and they just showed me this image when I was thinking this, because I was like, wait a minute. And I'm like, so this one energy, this source that created all of these galaxies and created all of us, we're all fractals and stuff. And I'm like, he's just like, it is just like, I'm just curious. I just want to experience it. I'm like, oh, I'm curious. I love experiencing. And then they just showed me this image, like being like, you know, zooming all the way up and out, and like seeing this classroom full of all of these like energies that are all like doing their own, like creating their own realities, right? Like, you know how like we played Barbie?
Yeah.
Like whatever, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that, and we're gonna do this. And I'm like, and like they just kind of like show that to me, and I'm like, who fucking knows? Nobody knows.
No.
I'm like, it literally could be, at the end of the day, it's like all of these, you know, beings that are just like, oh, let's try this, and we're just part of a
created. I want to know who created that source. Where'd that source come from? Who knows? It's got
nobody knows. I'm like, but it was just, to me, that was just like, yeah, where it was just like, I'm curious, and I just
what I'm going to ask.
Yeah. Well, and I even wonder, as a soul, on the other side when we're there, do we even know that
when we're on the other side?
No, do we even know where source came from? Because we are a fractal of source.
Yeah.
Right. But so even when we're on the other side and we don't have any amnesia, I don't even think we know as a soul, as an existence, that.
Who knows? I mean, I guess we'll find out.
I know.
I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah. And then it won't be as big of a like, oh my God. It would be like, duh, we already knew that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because some of the things that they were saying when we were watching these NDEs, it felt like I knew that. I knew it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, almost like I experienced something similar at some point. Yeah. And it was just this weird feeling that I had as I was listening to these stories and of them being in the afterlife. And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. And then I was like, wait a minute. Like, I almost have this faint memory of having my own experience like that, but clearly
but we also read it in like, because a lot of it correlates with what we've read in Journey of Souls, when they were like, a lot of what they were saying, it's like, I was like,
oh, we would have experienced, our soul has experienced that thousands of times.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But I was like, when I was listening, I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what, the journey of like what we've heard in Journey of Souls, what we've heard over different type of, and so it was like this checkpoint to be like, yep. Oh, that's the council. Oh, that's the, life review. Oh, that's what's happening here. When some of them talk about like, it's all black and they're just down this tunnel and they can feel beings around. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the journey to blah, blah, blah.
Or even so one of, I think it was the Nancy one. And she was like, I thought that I was supposed to see tons of light and color when I was in this, or I was supposed to be in some sort of tunnel, when she realized that she was, and then all of a sudden a tunnel manifested into her reality. And she's like, oh, there it is. So she started to practice manifesting while she was in, like, on the other side, realizing how quickly she can manifest. And now she writes books all about creating your reality. And so she's actually going to get her 5th book. I think it's called Creating Your Reality, because I'm really curious what she has to say about how easy it is to manifest.
Absolutely.
Because I cannot manifest.
Yeah. And like a lot of people that have experienced an NDE have said the moment they thought something, it all of a sudden appeared.
Yeah.
And so that definitely was something where it's like, all of a sudden I was, because I was just listening to one before we came on, and she was like, all of a sudden I was thinking like, okay, well then let's just get on with this. Like, let's just do this. And then like instantly was somewhere else, and they're like, okay, let's get on with it, and so I'm like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, just to kind of have that, like, I keep thinking in my head why I want to be a millionaire, but it's not happening.
Right. Come on.
I'm like, so obviously it doesn't work.
If we had that much money, then we wouldn't have to work our corporate jobs, so that we could just be of service and do this sort of thing all day long.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have to worry about paying our stupid bills.
Yeah, if I could just like, I could just manifest and be like, actually, I'd like to lose 50 pounds.
Where you wake up, you're just like, wow, my clothes are so big.
Done. Oh, I like to go to Egypt. Thanks. There. I've talked about teleporting. Come on.
Oh yeah.
Like, I just want to, okay, but I'm just saying this right now. As I'm saying it, I'm like, oh, but Spirit, I don't want to have an NDE. So
oh, yeah. Let's not manifest it.
Let's not manifest that. So no, just kidding. I don't want to do that. And it's funny, like, it gets me thinking like why certain people experience NDEs.
Yeah.
And like, I think there's different reasons why some people do. I think there's some are needing a reboot and needing a shift. And we're maybe on the wrong road. We're maybe, stuck in this humanness, and this kind of gives this like reboot and shake, and all of a sudden it's like, boom. But then you also have some that are already on the spiritual journey, and they're very much aware of it and all of that. And so you sit there going like, what the fuck is the point of this, when we know the soul's story? Like, we know what the soul's coming here to learn. Like, we get that other side, that part of the other side. So then I'm like, what the fuck is the point of doing this for some people?
Well, I think part of the purpose is so that they can share their story.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like for definitely it's to share your story and for other people to hear. And I think that there's some people is meant to do it in a certain way and some are meant to do it in another way. Cause you know, you've seen we've seen somebody who's already in the spiritual community and talking about the other side who had one and it was like, well, she already knew all that. She was already talking about it. And then it was like, you just had to make her verify it, you know?
Yeah.
And so like I sit there and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want that.
No, I don't want it either.
Um,
I would like, however, to know everything, to strip away the human amnesia and just see everything from that perspective and know it in my soul.
Yeah,
I would like that experience without the death part,
yes,
or the coma.
Or the scariness.
Yeah.
All of that. I'm like, nope, that like freaks me out. There was this one lady that she had a fascinating story, and oh yeah, so she was what was it? Okay, so she was, yeah, so she, it's all coming back to me, sorry. It's just like, I'm just finding the filing cabinet in my head where that memory was stored and trying to pull it forward. So she had two people close to her that were dying of cancer. And she was watching them as I guess they were getting the best care possible, like the best that money could buy. Like it was the best of the best. And she was watching them die. And she all of a sudden got cancer. And so she was like, holy shit, like, you know, if the best that money can buy is getting you that, which isn't that great, why would I go and do that? So she went and started getting like Eastern medicine, the more natural route. And, you know, she kind of said like for a few years, because this was going on for over a span, and she would go like, be good, get bad, be good, get bad. And she finally, at one point, I think she was like talking to a Western doctor, and he was like, you know what, let's get some scans done, like
just to see where you're at.
Yeah, just to see.
Because she was feeling good, and people were telling her that she looked great, and so she was feeling great. And then she saw her doctor, and they're like, let's just check, see where you're at.
Yeah, yeah. And so she went and did these scans, and basically the doctor was like, oh my God, like you have 3 months to live, and there's no like protocol, there's no medicine, there's nothing that we can do Western wise that's going to save you. And you know, she said in that moment, like everything started to just go downhill and rapidly.
Yeah.
So she went from like, she was feeling good to all of a sudden, like within 3 months span, just like done. And what was really fascinating with this, before we go into her near-death experience, was the power of words and how much power it can hold, and the concept of like her hearing that, it's like it went into the brain and was like, and it told the body, I'm dying, and the body was like, okay, let's go, you know, type of thing. And it really made me step back and think, and you know, just from my own experience with Lyme disease, and I've realized, like, out of that, when I've looked back, I'm like, I wondered how much of my mindset kept me ill.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely know there was obviously a physical part of it for sure. But I also wonder if, like, you know, you get stuck and you're having a hard day and you're having lots of pain, and then you get into this poor me, which is like, I'm not saying you shouldn't get into the poor me. Like, sometimes it's like, fuck you. Why am I going through this? But I realized, I'm like, I have wondered this before, even coming across this concept of how long I would have stayed in it if I had, you know, kept in that mindset, or maybe I could have been out of it sooner. You know, I remember seeing my grandmother I remember her taking a fall, and it just shook her. And she ended up, like, you know, not going to her, you know, senior citizen yoga classes, and, you know, all her walks and all of these things that she always did. and how quickly she deteriorated when she stopped that, because this mindset. And then when we were able to snap her out of it, and because then it was like, oh, I can't do that. No, I can't do that anymore. And I can't do that anymore. I can't do that. And when we were able to like switch her mindset and get her back to it, she was right back to where she was before. And so it's so apparent how much your mindset can affect your body.
Yeah. And I think it even goes to being so physically capable, whether you're in like, so I have like thinking of people who have larger bodies. So I have some friends who are, you know, heavier, which is beautiful. However, a lot of times they will hold themselves back from, say, going for a hike or going for a jog on the treadmill, or because it's their mindset, they think that they can't do it because they're too big. Whereas if they just shifted their mindset and be like, no, I can't fucking do that. You know, there's so many things, like I've one in front in particular, and I can think of so many things that they missed out on because they didn't think that their body was capable to do it, where it was capable to do it, but they didn't think that they could do it because of it, or even like going on certain trips or going to certain restaurants or stuff like that. And I just, it's hard obviously to be in that space and in that mindset, but also such a beautiful release to be able to kind of shift out of that.
And I think I've experienced that definitely. I would even say over the last couple of years, you know, where I've had that mindset where I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that just because what if I can't? And then I'm going to be embarrassed because it's going to be obvious that it was because I'm overweight that I can't do it. And it was definitely like a pride thing. And so I completely can understand that part of it. And it like, you know, that it's held me back on so many different things where I'm like, yeah, I'd rather not even try than do it because I don't want to be embarrassed. And even if it was just by myself, it's like a disappointment to myself because, you know, I know what I know what I was physically capable of when I wasn't overweight. Right. There was this life that I was like, I loved weightlifting. I did Tough Mudder. You have all these things. And then you're like, and then it's just like this mindset kind of goes. But I also realize, because, you know, I've watched different people who are, you know, really overweight, like to the point, like mobility is very difficult and they fucking do it. Are they running a marathon? No. Like, come on. Yeah. But are they walking every day? Are they trying that hike? Are they doing that? And it's so like, I'll watch that and be like, okay, Allison, come on. Like, you know what? Maybe, it's uncomfortable hiking and going uphill. And I'm, you know, it's uncomfortable. Do I like that? No.
It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable. But could I do it? Yes. You know,
you can do it. And so I've even noticed for myself, like I'm 42 and there's times where I catch myself thinking like, oh, I'm too old to do that. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not too old to do that. I'm 42.
No.
Like, what the fuck? So it's just,
you want to do pole dancing?
Yeah,
I thought so.
I'm not too old for that.
Do you know how hard? I remember going to a pole dancing class and I was like bruised all over afterwards. Like my inner thighs, my arms, because like unbelievable. Like kudos to anybody who dances on a pole, because that shit is hard.
They are in shape.
They are in shape.
They're
like
strong.
Even my sister, who is a personal trainer, like my sister's fit. It is fucking hard. It's like unbelievable. I remember being like, do you guys have like instead of knee pads, like you have pads for your inner thighs? Because
foam
like
pole.
You have a foam pole because I'm hurting. It hurts a lot. You gotta like clamp those thighs around that pole. That hurts.
So funny.
Okay, we digress.
But that is a good example of like so now that lady, I think she tours around and she talks to doctors about the way that they speak to their patients, and so that they know, she tells their stories to big groups of doctors so that they know when you're about to tell somebody that they're gonna die, like that's, you know, don't do that. because maybe they're
No,
not, but now your
no.
words just killed them.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on from this, I didn't like how I said something. And so I just
Oh,
want to correct it when I was
okay.
like, oh, I've watched people that are like really overweight or whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck is really overweight, Allison? And I'm like, there's so many different, you know, spectrums to that,
Mhm.
like, you know, and I fucking hate the BMI because like you know half of us are morbidly obese on that damn thing. I'm like, I think it says I'm morbidly obese, and I'm like, what the fuck is
Sure, I
morbidly
am too.
obese? I
Yeah, I don't
know. So
know.
I'm like, I didn't like how that came out because I fucking hate any type of like stigma around weight because I deal
Mhm,
with it
mhm.
myself. And so yeah, I just wanted to, I wasn't meaning that in any.
Well, all bodies are beautiful
They are
and
beautiful.
capable.
Absolutely. I'm
Mhm.
like, I am definitely on that journey of like that self-love of where I'm at right now and
Mhm.
learning to love, you know, the bumps and the and the, you know, craters and all
The
the beautiful
craters.
things.
Well, I think that's part of your soul contract and the lessons that you're learning. So we know self-love is and self-worth is
It's a huge
a
one for
huge
me.
theme for you in this lifetime.
Absolutely.
So it all makes
Absolutely.
sense, like it all ties together, right?
Oh, totally. I'm like, I was just
Mhm.
doing a guided meditation last night, all on self-worth. Oh, it's never ending.
I know, I know.
Okay, what else are we? Oh, okay. So the same person that we're talking about that, you know, oh wait, what was her
I
what
don't
was her
remember her
name?
name.
Oh, I don't remember her name. We'll share that, but
Oh,
her near death.
Anita.
Yeah. I'm just trying to remember though when because she ended up in the hospital, she was dying.
Mhm.
And she had this near death experience and you know went to the other side and like learned all of these things. But what was crazy because like when she was kind of making that decision, do I come back, do I not, like I don't just, she didn't really want to, but then she was realizing like other people's soul contracts wouldn't be completed if she didn't come back. So I think it was her husband.
Yeah, she had
um,
something she needed to play out with her husband.
yeah, and so if she decided to stay there, then you know he wouldn't have that, and so she ended up coming back for that. But they said because it was just kind of like, well, I don't want to come into a dying body. Like, how is
Mhm.
that going to look? Like, I'm dying. And they were like, don't worry, that will be taken care of. Da 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 da. She came back, and I forget, it was very quickly afterwards that she like had this complete because they were like everybody was there saying goodbye. They're like, you
Yeah.
know, she's going to be gone within hours, you know, all of these things. And I think it was like, I can't remember. I thought it was like within weeks or within a couple months. Like she literally had this as fast as she deteriorated, she came back big time and there was no tumors. And
Crazy.
she had done no radiation, none of that.
Wow.
And so they, you know, the doctors were like literally perplexed, had no idea, you know, what the fuck was happening. And I think, you know, if that was me, I'd be like the same. I'd be like, okay, fine, coming back because I'm helping out my bro. Um, but I am not going to be living in this body that,
Yeah.
you know, I don't want to come back and suffer and continue to suffer, you know,
And
or
then to
whatever it
die
is.
anyway.
Well, yeah, like what is the point? Like I'm already here, like just stay here.
Yeah, right.
So I found that fascinating. But, you know, one of the things that she was asking about was karma.
Mhm.
And like, you know, and so the interviewer was like, you know, how do you see karma? Because, you know, from he was like, from my understanding and what I've heard from others is like with karma, you get to choose as a soul. You're never forced to do something. So you and I have always kind of like learned like karma kind of feels like, you know, two sides of the coin. You know, you're the victim in one lifetime and then you're
Abuser.
the abuser in the other. I was like, how do I even say the opposite of that? In the other. And so you experience both sides of the coin. And I found it very interesting. So the interview was kind of like, you know, my understanding is like, you know, that, but as a soul, you're never forced to do anything. And you get to choose if you want to experience the other side or not.
Mhm.
And I was like, what? wait a minute. And then I'm like, well, it makes sense that you're not forced to do anything, because I truly believe you are not forced to do anything. You are maybe encouraged, or you're shown how this can be like evolve your soul, but you're never forced to do it. And I was like, that just dinged with me. It was like, and then she was talking about, she's like, yes, I like, that's what she kind of saw, but she also felt something else, that, you know, with karma, because she was there experiencing not just her life review, but she was experiencing all her lives that were connected to this life, all at the same time. So it wasn't just this life review, it was all of them. And so she was saying, like, she believes that, you know, with these karmic cycles or whatever, that you can choose to view it. So let's just say you were the abuser, you could choose, instead of coming into a lifetime to be the victim of that abuse, you can just watch how that affected and experience how that affected to the person that you abused in that lifetime. And because you can experience and see everything to do with their life because of that, and decide to wrap that karma up that way.
Which I love.
Me too. I was like, oh my gosh. And part of me was like, well, why would any soul want to play that out? Right. You know, I'd be asking that. I'd be like, well, fuck that. I don't want to play it out if I don't have to. But that's the thing. Us as souls, you know, we want to experience.
Well, because we're curious and we want to evolve. Yeah. So we're like, well, you know, I'm curious to see how that feels to be the victim on that side of whatever it is, So at some point you are at this high level of consciousness where you're like, okay, I see how that was from my end, but you know, I'm curious to see what it's like from that end, because maybe you don't fully understand it when you're watching the life review and you're, you know, experiencing the emotions and how everything was affected from that perspective and everybody else's perspective. And then you're like, okay, the only perspective I'm missing is truly experiencing it myself. So I think
I want to.
Yeah.
Right.
The little ones, I feel like the big ones will probably want to experience in a lifetime, but the little ones, like, because I was thinking just recently, I'm like, God, like, I feel like, you know, the karma that you create in your life, in your current life, like the karma that I've created in this lifetime, I'm like, how am I supposed to clear that karma up before I die? Because I don't want to do another lifetime. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and because before my awakening, you know, you live your life, and there's moments, like, overall, I feel like I've done a pretty good job, but there's moments, nobody's perfect. I'm a human being. So there's certain things in my past where I'm like, oh, I was really mean to that girl in grade 8. I wrote a really nasty letter, and I wasn't going to give it to her, but my friends gave it to her, and I didn't want her to read it, but she did. And I hurt her feelings really, really bad.
And you're like, great, now I created this karma. Like, it's all over, right? Like, it's sprinkled throughout for sure.
So how am I supposed to clear up all my karma from my lifetime before I died? Because I don't want to, but it's nice to know that in my life review, I'll be able to clear that up with her soul.
Yeah.
In the afterlife.
Well, and it's so funny when you say, like, because I don't want to come back. And it's so funny because that is our human talking.
I know I'll come back.
And that's the thing. Our soul is like, fuck yeah, I want to come back. This is fun.
I already have some bouts of that where you get in the energy of like, wow, this lifetime is really actually just a big adventure. And if you stay curious, because I've been on the other side of that spectrum where I'm like, this is too hard. I don't want to be here anymore. To this side of the spectrum, thankfully, this side is much better, where it's more like, you're curious, and how are things going to play out, and what is the future going to look like? And I'm not so obsessed with like every single thing of how it's going to happen. I'm just more enjoying the journey and the adventure of life. And I could see how being in that energy, your soul is like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's go down and do another lifetime.
Do it.
Let's try it this way this time.
And that's the thing, though, because the soul is like, dude, I'm literally going for a week and I'm back. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. So it's like going off to camp for a week and then you're back. Big deal. And then we get into this incarnation and it is so slow. That you're like, oh my God. But then again, like, so that's where I'm like, oh God, like, for sure our souls are like, like, oh yeah, put me back in, Scotty.
Go for another round.
Let's go for a round. This is so fun.
And I could totally see how my soul would be into that, because even in just life, I'm very proactive and ambitious, and I love to like just be part of it, right? So if I'm making a difference, get me in there.
And I'm curious, right? Like I am curious. I'm a curious being. And so I'm like, that's where I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And it already seems like my soul is like eager beaver, splitting itself and doing all these different incarnations and I'm just like,
so sick of you.
And I'm like, I'm so sick of you right now. You don't talk to me right now.
like you can get away from it.
Oh my God. I'm like, you eager beaver. I'm like, you're somebody I would tease in school.
And I'd have some karma to deal with.
Yeah. You're the keener at the business meeting that everybody's like, okay.
Oh, stop. Those guys are so annoying.
Yeah. And you're like, we could have been wrapped up an hour ago.
You keep raising your hand. Stop.
That's my soul. She's so annoying. Thank God my human doesn't do that. So it doesn't translate over here. My God. So another concept that I found fascinating with this one lady, like I really liked her, so that's for sure going to be linked, Anita, was the afterlife experience is customized to how you want it to be, to how you believe, like what you believe in and stuff. And so this interviewer who has interviewed tons of NDEs is like, oh, when they bring up Jesus, they're like, oh, he's the star of the show. He seems to be a very busy, high demand on the other side, because he seems to, for a lot of people will show up in these experiences. And it was so like, I was just like, ta-da! If you as a human, if Jesus is something that you believe in, especially if you worship and all of that, you're gonna manifest him. He's gonna be there on the other side, because that's what you are expecting. But if you worship Buddha per se, or goddess Isis, and that's where you're gonna manifest them to meet you there. So it's not like it's not just to do with like Jesus is going to be there for every single person. That's because that's what their belief system was. If you want all of your family, living or past, to be there when you pass, they will be there because their higher selves, their souls will be there. And so I was like, oh my damn, who are you manifesting to be there?
I was going to ask you that question. So
I beat you.
You did.
Telepath.
So definitely, telepathy.
Telepathy. Damn it.
You can't say that word. Try again.
Telepathy?
Yeah.
But I was telepathic. That's what I was. Telepathy, but telepathically heard you.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Okay, carry on.
So definitely my guides. So Cody,
well, what are you gonna see? They're gonna show up however you want them to show up.
He's probably gonna shapeshift into many different costumes.
Oh my God.
And then obviously my loved ones, like I would just want my family to be there, and past loved ones, and then any souls that I didn't do this lifetime with, that I'm super connected to, that are over there, that I just want to feel at home and loved and in the energy of love. I don't necessarily need any ascended masters or angels or guides, or
dude, I was like gonna say, okay, enough with that. Let's just fantasize here. Okay. If you could have a famous
Michael Jackson, just kidding.
Okay, so either a famous soul or a famous ascended master or a goddess or anything like that, because of course we all want our family. Yes, of course I want my family. I want to see H and be like, whatever it is, see if he's like, actually nice. And but if we put all that aside, if there's one person or like a few that have passed, who would you love to see?
So at this stage, Merlin, and I know some people are like, Merlin, but I swear he's been working with me since like last summer. So when I go into meditation, he'll show up. He's, taught me stuff. Like I feel his energy sometimes, like Merlin for sure. Archangel Metatron, and Saint Germain, because they've been around me as well. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But a famous person, I don't know. I'm not really connected to
I don't know
famous
about famous
people.
people. Elvis for me.
Yeah.
I find him fascinating. Yeah. I do like his, well, there's so many. God, I could just go down that rabbit hole.
All of them.
All of them.
Line
show up. Just show up.
Just show up. What about you?
So mine would be Merlin. He actually shows up every time I connect in my place of nature.
Oh, every time?
Every time.
Is that new or always?
New.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So he is part of my ritual of connecting, and he cleanses my energy. And so I'm like, it's just like, I'm just like, hey, okay, this sounds so weird. I don't think
I know when I said Merlin, I was like, people are gonna think I'm crazy.
Okay, mine's really weird. It's so stupid.
Just say it.
Okay. In my connection, when I'm grounding and I'm going to my place of nature, I have a willow tree there. And I hug this willow tree, and this willow tree hugs me back.
It's willows.
Yes. And every time I feel so calm. Aww. It's like the moment the willows wrap around and hug, it's like this willow tree, the soul that is in this willow tree is like so nurturing, but grandpa feeling, like it's
like a male.
Yeah, it's a male energy, very grounded, and just like holds. And I literally feel myself just like boom, ground down. And I'm like, and I can just, and like he can be playful. Sometimes I get a little pat to keep going.
Whips you on the bum.
Yeah. It's so fucking weird, but it has become part of my thing. And I'm like, I just know when I'm hugging that willow tree, I'm like, oh, just in so much peace. So I want to see the soul that is doing that.
That's you want the willow tree there?
I want the willow tree there. Oh my God.
Maybe you'll go to the willow. Maybe you'll go to the willow tree. That'll be where you, like, our places of nature that we go to. I bet you that will be, I don't know.
So cool to have that.
Yeah.
But I've always connected with a willow tree because as a kid, we had a big willow tree on our property, and I just loved it. I was fascinated with it. I was always like, my parents never cut it, so it was, the willows always hit the grass, always hit the ground, and I just would constantly go in there and just like, whip around in it, and I loved it. So it was just so weird and funny to have that. It wasn't there from the very beginning, but it showed up at some point, and so I was like, wow. And then I would just like to see everybody.
Yeah, I love that.
There's so many. I'm like, that's so fun. Okay, so customizing it. There you go.
Customize your, what do you call it? Your death. Customize your.
Actually, I would like to customize my death. If I could get that, if I could go in and do a soul contract and make sure
I die peacefully in my sleep.
Yes.
When I'm like 99 and a half.
Well, when I'm done with this life, I'm like, if I'm like 99 and a half and I'm like, everybody's gone, and I'm like, come on, when's it my turn? I am done.
Beat me up, Scotty.
Yeah, beat me up, Scotty. I'm like, I don't think I want to be around with everybody around me that I know is gone. No, but I'm like, yeah, just to like peacefully go in my sleep and just like wake up and be like, hi.
It's my surprise party.
I know. I'm like, yeah, it's so fascinating. I'm like, I love it. I think do we get everything that we wanted to see?
Yeah. Karma, the mindset of where the power of your words, shifting your mindset.
Oh yeah, and future insight.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we don't really need to get into that, but we can say, like, some of the people who have these near-death experiences will be able to see what's going to happen in the future. Yeah. In our future, like the collective future. So there's some people out there who share about that. that
or even like they come back with this heightened sense, like their senses are heightened. So maybe they don't see all of it in that state, but it's like they come back with this heightened sense and they receiving it like crazy. It's like they like got superpowers afterwards.
Yeah. So, and then part of that purpose for them to experience that would be to share kind of like what people can expect moving forward in our collective energy. And yeah, pretty interesting.
It's so cool. I freaking love it. So yeah, we will link a bunch of the different interviews that we saw. If anybody has had a near death, or you know anybody that had a near death and they're willing to share, we would love to have you on. So reach out to us. I'm like, that is something I would love to have, is have a guest on that's experienced it, to talk about it. Yeah, that would be really, really cool.
Yeah. I don't think we have anything else to say. Like we don't have any like announcements or...
Well, no. So, okay, if you guys are wanting a reading, so we do soul readings. So where we connect to your soul, we kind of see the bigger picture. We go to your Akashic records. So we do joint readings where both of us are in there and receiving for yourself. And then we also do solo ones. You know, we just experienced one where we did a healing together, but kind of like split off within that energy and experienced different parts of it, which was really powerful. So if you're like, oh my God, I want a reading, or I want to understand my life's purpose, or, you know, whatever it is, I'm like, we do that. So, you know, head on over to soulstarenergycollective.com and hit us up.
Be our friend.
Be our friend. And so like obviously we do that on a regular basis. We do energy healings, and then as well during, you know, we teach. We're teaching Reiki this weekend, and we teach other people how to connect to their intuition. So, you know, something you're interested in, then keep us in mind. And next time we have our next course launching, then you can check it out.
All right. See you next week.
Bye.